welcome to Real to Real Talk. I am your host, Paul Britton, and with me, Kristen Smith. Hey, Kristen,
Hello.
I got your name
Yes.
right this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have to legally change it. That makes my
Are you
life so
proud of
much
me?
easier.
Are
I
you
know.
proud of me? Okay.
It's only been several years.
Kristen, I had the dilemma that 5 movies came to my theaters, my local theaters this week. I had The Brutalist come, I had Nickel Boys come, I had September 5th come, I had The Room Next Door come, and I had Sing Sing come, all in the same weekend. 5. And I am only human. I can't see 5 movies, even on a MLK weekend. So I picked 3 of them, and you had seen 2. So you said you would come on. So these all 5 of those movies are Oscar hopefuls. We've got the Oscar noms coming out this Friday, I think. Yes, or Thursday.
No, they're coming out Thursday morning at 7:30 Central Time.
Correct. Okay, so we got the noms coming up. Let's just really quick take a bird's eye view of where the what you kind of feel like is going on with the Oscar race, and I'll chip in as well.
So right now we are kind of, I mean, in thinking about it, I'm going to talk about the Emilia Perez in the room, which is that Emilia Perez, along with Conclave, looks like those are going to probably go on to be nominated for the most things.
For sure.
Which in Conclave, it kind of makes sense, like in a kind of like spotlighty sort of way. Like,
yep.
This is a generalization, but so far it's been true. Dads love Conclave.
Yeah, I'm a dad. I loved Conclave.
Yeah, like so many dads I know. My dad loves Conclave. And I was talking to one of my friends, and she was like, yeah, my husband, who is a dad, loves Conclave. And I thought that was just like delightful. But like
I saw it with my dad. He loved Conclave.
Yeah. So like to me, that was a movie that has broad appeal, and I will come back to Conclave. But the other one, which feels inexplicable, but for some reason the industry really does rally behind it, is Emilia Perez, which just sucks.
I don't understand. It feels like, so Emilia Perez, a movie that you and I both disliked and gave very negative reviews on right here on this show, feels like a movie that there's a bubble, and nobody inside the bubble has heard that it's okay to dislike this movie, because the love for this movie just is predicated on ignoring the fact that the songs really aren't that good. There's one really A+ number, a couple B to B- numbers, and then the rest are at best D. You know, the songs are not good. The ending is actively terrible and laughably stupid. And then everything else that happens throughout the film is just laced with problematic seeding from a director that just didn't do the research.
Yeah, who didn't do research, didn't care, had to be redirected from making an even worse movie.
Yeah,
by like the people in it.
Yeah,
it's just like the more I read about this movie, the more I hate it. And it's just like, I don't think it will like.
It's going to get a ton of noms. There's nothing we can do to stop it.
I don't think it's going to win Best Picture at this point, because a movie has to have broad appeal, which is why I think Conclave honestly has a good chance.
Because of ranked voting. Let's just say that.
Yes. Because like for like those who are not kind of aware of how like Best Picture kind of works, it's preferential ballot. So like you rank all 10, 1 through 10 in preference. And then it eventually will do that it'll go to number 2 slots, and then all the things that win number 2. And so like in order to win Best Picture, you need a movie that has really broad appeal, like that's going to get 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s.
You need a bunch of 1, 2s, 3s. You just need a bunch of 1, 2, 3s. And I think Conclave is going to be lacking on 1s but have a shit ton of 2s and 3s. What's the other one you were saying that has
and Anora, I think, will also do well. I mean, so far, I think Anora, I think, will do well because like it got the SAG ensemble. Like Yura Borisov might come in, and so like it has a kind of thing that like I mentioned to you beforehand, like kind of Parasite did, where like it was getting a lot of like critics groups,
Yeah,
and then it kind of lost steam as the front runner for a while. And
correct.
then I can see that there is a path for it to potentially pick up steam again if people kind
Are
of
like, oh wait, I did love Honora. It
it's the
was
movie.
it's really good. My here's my feeling. All right, I feel like there are two movies that are going to get a ton of number ones, and
Mhm.
those two are going to be Honora and The Brutalist. Where Honora
Yes.
is going to get a lot of ones and then do better on in the with non number one ballots, and The Brutalist is going to get a ton of ones, and then but there's going to be a lot of people that just look at The Brutalist and like that is way too we're going to discuss. But then Conclave has the all right, maybe not as many ones as Nora, but definitely more twos and threes. I think that's how it shakes out, and then it just
Yeah.
depends on
And
how
then it's
long it
just
takes.
and then it's just a question of like what is the best picture winning package?
Yes,
Which like Conclave's only package it seems would be adapted screenplay, which it's gonna win.
right,
Like
right,
that's the number one. Like nobody contests that's not gonna win that.
right,
And then picture. So
right,
it would kind of run a spotlight sort of like it could take SAG ensemble,
right.
it could take PGA, and then just go straight to picture. So it
Correct.
just would win too.
All right.
Um,
Uh, super fast. I'm gonna list out movies, and we're gonna see if we can get to 10 really fast.
okay.
Brutalist is a definite. Wicked is a definite. Amelia Perez is a definite.
Yes.
Conclave and Nora are definites.
Yes.
Um, help me out.
Dune Part 2.
Dune Part Two is like 80-90% definite. I don't
Okay.
know that
The
that one's
Substance.
the substance. Yes, I would say the substance even more than Dune Part Two. I do think September 5. I have seen it at this point. I think there's, the granddads are gonna that
It's
don't like
possible. It's
conclave.
possible. Yeah, it might sneak in. I think it's
Yeah.
possible.
Let me think. Uh, challengers?
No,
No. Okay.
challengers.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
challengers could get score. It might get editing.
Uh
I
huh.
think scores is it might be its only nomination. It's hard to it's like hard to say. Like Academy could either do really typical things, which it has, and
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes it does really fucky things.
Right.
And like worst person in the world in screenplay, which is wild.
I love that.
So like I know, I love it too. So like it's hard to say like I think like a real pain might get in. I
Oh, a
think
real pain. Yes, for sure.
I think
Uh,
Sing Sing or Nickel Boys, but not both might
I
get in.
think I think it'll be Nickel Boys. I just think that
I
Sing
think it'll be
Sing.
Sing Sing.
Really? Okay, interesting. I haven't seen Sing Sing yet, so all right. Let's. It's going to be super fun. Whenever you want to come on and talk, not if you don't want to do it next week, you want to come back in a couple weeks, or like maybe just at some point we're gonna have to have a convo on the Oscars once they're out.
Yes.
But it's not the priority right now is talking about the Brutalist. Let's just be fair here. Okay. This is there has never been a more sure thing to get a nom movie than the Brutalist. Like it
I wouldn't go that far.
for best pick nomination for best pick, it is guaranteed. Like
Oh, like
it's one of the
it's
the 5 or 6. There's no way this doesn't get at least a nomination for best picture.
no, true. I just mean in the sense that like it's a strange film. Like
Yes,
the movie, I think I would be surprised if when people go to see it, they don't realize that like how what kind of a film this is. I kept
correct.
describing it to people as almost like a 70s film in the
Yes,
sense of its experimental nature, its scope. Like it feels like a Francis Ford Coppola film in that it has not only the scope of Francis Ford Coppola in the
mm-hmm.
70s, but also
Yep.
the batshit craziness of Francis Ford Coppola in the 70s.
For sure, and the historical context of the better Coppola stuff, and the just the importance, the heft of Coppola stuff. All right, so I had mentioned we're going to be spoiling aspects of this movie because I don't feel like we can have a semi-intelligent conversation on this movie without spoiling certain aspects of it. So, and that this is my decision. Normally, we try to avoid spoilers, but I feel like, and here's why. So, one of the things that going into the movie, I wasn't entirely sure what the Brutalist was a reference to, and then after after the movie, I just did a quick look up of Brutalist art or something like that, and then it came up as it was an architecture movement, and then I know exactly what it is. So it's a reference to the architecture movement from the super early 50s, maybe in late 40s through into the 60s, spearheaded by Eastern Europe and Russia, where the architecture is very stark. The form is the form. It's highly functional. There is no dressing. What you see is exactly what it is, and the beauty is in the presentation. The beauty is doesn't need any sort of accoutrement to add to its present. It's the opposite of like French architectural, like you would find it at Versailles or something, where there's just a lot of no flourish, hard angles, the exposed concrete, exposed steel, lots of windows, big windows that just display the interior. That's the idea behind the Brutalist movement. And the reason why this is important is because for me, when I watch this movie, we were talking about this before, the entire text of the movie is present and the subtext is present. There's nothing hidden in this movie. It's deep in the sense that it presents so many things to think about, but also the depth is you can see straight to the bottom. There's nothing hidden. They don't try to hide the fact that uh, are the Jewish people that are coming to America being oppressed? Yes, and here to represent that is Elizabeth, the wife of the protagonist, arriving to the United States in a wheelchair. It's just like everything is just so present. And for me, the way that frames the film is that you have to wrestle with your emotions on it. There is no opportunity for you to stop and sit and think. It just hits you hard. And would you agree with that, or what were your feelings while watching it?
I don't know if this is just me being a little neurospicy, that I took things a little bit more literally
Okay.
while watching it. I do agree that there's a lot of symbolism that's happening throughout the film, because sometimes it's like symbolism, it's like historical context as symbolism. So for example, when he goes to Philadelphia, and like it plays a old like 1940s 50s like reel about
Newsreel. Yeah.
Philadelphia is a place of opportunity,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, where like there is a lot of contrasting ideas, where it is taking, where like we are seeing him, his actions and everything juxtaposed with what is happening either around the world, or what's happened, or like what people's expectations are of a certain area. Like when he first moves to
Jonestown?
Yeah, to Pennsylvania, and like he starts he starts doing his architecture again. He starts like doing his drawings, and he starts like designing again.
Right.
And then it starts playing a newsreel of like, I think it was United Nations, whenever they were like the creation of the state of Israel.
Right.
And so like you're taking different types of like historical things that are happening, and like smashing it together with the reality of whatever he is going through. So like there's kind of this prevalent theme of like which I think is the main theme of the movie, of just like this is the American dream. The American dream is being prosperous. The American dream
Yes.
is you're going to this big place and you're going to go
Yes.
do big things. And it's constantly juxtaposed with the reality of what was true for him to be able to get ahead, but also what I still think is true today.
Right. And what you just referenced is another perfect example of kind of what I'm talking about, where everything is exposed and out in the open. Because I'm going to use the Bob Dylan A Complete Unknown movie as an example. In Bob Dylan A Complete Unknown, we see Bob Dylan working on The Times They Are a Changin' song, or I think it was that one. Although it might have been anyway, he's writing a song, and then if you're paying attention, you hear in the background that there's that the news anchor is talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Like you have
he was kind of Forrest Gumping right there.
Right. But you have to be listening. Whereas the Brutalist, it's not going on in the background. There's literally a newsreel put on the screen, and you have to watch the newsreel of this is what's going on in Europe right now, while this displaced Jewish person is having to basically hide his Jewishness while in the United States. And it's like it's just so there, like it's presented, and that's what I'm saying, why the script of this movie and the way the subtext, something that would have been happening in the background on a TV in the background, or something that would have been present on a newspaper that Adrian Brody's character picks up and just sees, Israel, the state of Israel has been created by the United Nations. It's like that subtle setting of concurrent events is scrapped in replace of, here's a fucking newsreel of what's going on in the world, and telling you and framing it in that way. Yeah, and it's so different. It's so different. It really is jarring to deal with, being forced to understand and comprehend and deal with what in other movies would be put off to the side and kind of hinted at, and not so subtly, but there is no subtlety here.
Yeah, no, it makes deliberate choices in
Right.
what it's presenting to us in specific moments. It's presenting to us both, again, as table setting, as this is the era that we're in, but we're being shown this information specifically because it ties into everything that it's trying to talk about.
Yeah. And it's all of those decisions, and it's every decision in this movie. So some of this research, what I learned from listening to other podcasts and whatnot, and reading articles or whatever. It wasn't necessarily research, just me reading up on movies because I'm an idiot and a nerd. Is that one, the filming was like straight from the script. Like it was just like, we are doing, we're coming off of the script, and there is, there's no, ad-libbing, or there's no like, oh, let's, readjust this, or let's try this take doing it this way. It's like, nope, this is, the director had a very, very clear vision. And by the way, this is why he's going to get a director nom, because there are people within the director camp that love that shit, and
he's their front runner actually too.
Yeah, no, for sure. For example, it wasn't like the studio that said, hey, maybe we need an intermission. There was, we're putting in an intermission because a major thing is about to happen, and it is going to delineate the first two acts from the third act. And the third act is going to be very different in tone because we are introducing the wife of the protagonist, and she is going to add another layer to the difficulties, of being an immigrant in the United States by saying, okay, so yep, Jewish, check, that's really difficult. Being way too educated for the tasks that you're giving, check, that's way too difficult. But hey, at least he's a guy. Now, no, you think it's tough for the guy? Wait until the woman has to step in, and we're going to make her, crippled from famine, osteoporosis, famine-induced osteoporosis. It's like, oh my goodness. I when she showed up on screen, I had no idea she was going to be in a wheelchair, and I chuckled, like, just because it's like, oh, it's just so like, of course,
Yeah, I don't know if I had, until you had mentioned it before we started recording, I would have not even thought about like her being in a wheelchair was a like symbolic choice. Again, I kind of took things a little bit, like I saw where, as I was mentioning, I saw where it was making deliberate choices.
Yeah.
But in some cases like that, I was just like, oh, okay, she's in a wheelchair. Cool.
See, and here's the thing is, so like, full disclosure, I took AP classes in high school, so like, I learned to read books in the guise of, you have to find the subtext, because the only way to get a 4 or a 5 on your AP test is if you understand the subtext. And don't talk about, you can, obviously talk about the plot points and everything, but if you don't hit a shit ton of subtext shit, your ceiling is a 3. If you want the 4 or the 5, you need to hit that next layer. And usually the next layer, you kind of have to pick apart. You have to pick at it, but in this one, it's like, there is just shit that is just like, in a novel, it's like, hey, here are various examples of the working class and the subjugated class being fucked over, and it's figurative. Whereas in this, it's like, here's an example of the working class and the artistic class being fucked over by their supposed benefactors, and it is not figurative. It's like, and it's just like, so difficult to wrestle with at times.
I had kind of the opposite experience, but I also don't know if like, to talk about movies that are not subtle.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I did not clue in as much to this one as, say, for example, because we had The Substance, which is
perfect
the
example.
loudest when it comes, which is like maximalist and loudest when it comes to the fact that it has no subtext. Its text is its subtext.
But here's go ahead.
But whereas I felt like, and I think like, especially just when seeing it a second time as well, just like how I see, because like where I really liked about this film and felt like it was just so epic in scope is because it was so intimate. And so like,
oh, it is. There's 3 main characters,
and there's a lot of scenes that, like, I remember even especially like watching it in the first half of the movie the second time through, where I was like, I feel like in most movies they would not have the scene where Adrian Brody is getting off of the ship and immediately going to a brothel, and just like, and like having all these scenes. But like,
that's a great subtext example, by the way, but okay.
But I also just took it literally as well. Like, I processed a lot of this movie literally, and like,
because it is literal.
Looking back on it, I was like, okay, I can kind of see how things connected, almost in a kind of way. Like, I approached it similarly in a way of like Drive My Car, where Drive My Car is extremely symbolic in every single possible aspect of it.
But that's the subtlety of there. It's like, it's really layered.
But I still feel like there's so much happening.
Yes.
There's so many small moments, like small things that are captured, small scenes that go longer than you'd expect, like the jazz scene, which is at times excruciating. But You remember like the jazz scene at the very beginning where like he gets
Right.
he gets reimbursed and he goes out with his buddy to jazz.
Yeah.
And then there was this 1 minute shot through a saxophone as a like high as hell Adrian Brody is just like staring at the saxophonist while the saxophonist is hitting every single note possible.
Okay. And this is where it's like, okay, this was, you hit on one of the things I actively didn't like in this movie. And this is me because I am done with drug addiction movies. I'm just done with them. I've seen them. I understand. Requiem of a Dream broke me. I what are I have a really hard time relating with that. And it's like, and it's like there is so much going on in this movie. It just bogs the thing down, in my opinion. Like I'm just not interested in his struggles as an opium addict. I'm not interested. I don't care. It loses me, and it's a real problem in the movie for me to really embrace the movie. But that's just my thing. But it's also just such a very standard, you know, opiate of the, like, religion is the opiate of the people. Actually, opium is the opiate of the people. Like, it's again one of those things that it's like, if you want to show somebody who is struggling, you give them a drug addiction, and you can write a 10-page paper just about how the drug addiction represents a person's inability to escape their own self-made demons. And it's just like, it's so done. All of the symbolism is done so well and has been done so often, like, which is one of the things I really like about the movie, except for the drug addiction part.
I do struggled a little bit with the drug addiction part. I think partially because it's just a lot to kind of take in.
Yeah.
Also just because as someone who does struggle with substances, like, I do relate to it. And so, like, again, just taking it literally, like, I didn't even think about the opening of the masses part, but just taking it literally of like, yeah, given the trajectory of this character and also the things that people did back then, of just like, which I think is also how people get common to me. It started because he was in pain and because he came off the ship completely in pain. And that's how so many people got addicted to opiates. It's because they were in pain. They got this, and it eventually then it eventually, spiraled. So like, I struggle with it. I do think sometimes it's a little much to the narrative. Like, there's times where I'm just like, I really don't want to be thinking about the fact that he's late to meetings because he's just high as hell and does not realize how out of control it is, which also I relate to. But like,
isn't it enough that he's late to meetings because he's a little bit of a narcissist asshole? Like, isn't that enough of a reason to make him late to meetings? Like,
it's something that I still have to, like, even after like watching it twice, like, still have to think about just like, what are my kind of feelings with whether or not, like, is what we had is enough, or did we need to add this extra, especially because this is not a real person. So like like, spoilers, this person's Lydia Tarr. Like, this person doesn't exist. But Lydia like Tarr. Yes, but like, do I really feel like, do I feel like, was it a little bit too much to have that be a character trait on top of the big themes that we're trying to also weave in about about the immigrant experience, but also American society and the American dream?
Right. And that's my feeling, honestly. Like, from the first second that we see that he has that problem, it's just like, enough. Like, enough. I understand he has problems. We don't like it, and because the movie is so profoundly aware, and the director, because I've heard an interview from him, the director is so profoundly aware of all of these movies that have come before him. Paul Thomas Anderson, Coppola, Scorsese, all of these movies that have taken into account the struggle of artists, the struggle of the everyman, the struggle of immigrants, which it's the trifecta that we're dealing with here. Because this movie is so aware of all the movies that have dealt with that, and is purposefully building them into it, like using that tapestry as its basis and then building upon it. That I felt like the drug thing, it was just like, okay. There are two things I want to talk about within this movie that I want to hit on. First, it's a character that we haven't spoke on yet, and Zofia, the niece
That's
of
Denise, yes.
yeah, the niece of Adrian Brody's Laszlo and Elizabeth. She shows up mute, and again, it's one of those things that it's like, of course the immigrant doesn't have a voice, and but also it really is interesting to see, like, I'm not sure if the filmmaker intended for her to be sort of like, okay, now we have our avatar of somebody who is just watching, or intended her to be innocence presented, and just like can innocence survive and escape, and like, what do you feel like they gave her enough? Do you think that she added, because I felt like she added, I felt like they could have certainly given her more, but just having her sort of be this avatar of innocence, and I thought I really liked what they did with her, but I'm curious what you thought.
Also interpreted her silence completely literally.
Yes.
So like, I didn't even think about there being a stylistic story reason, like a thematic reason for her to just not be speaking. Maybe I was just having a time of my life while watching this movie. And I was just like, okay, sure. She doesn't speak. Sure. Person we saw at the very beginning, and we don't see an hour and a half until like 2 hours later. Sure, right. She doesn't speak. I'm fine with this.
Okay.
But goodness, now I'm having trouble remembering parts with her. Like, because like, I did appreciate, again, just like her being, like, her experience and how people were projecting things onto her, especially like Correct. The son, was it the son, or was it
it was the son?
The son of Guy Pearce's character.
Harrison Van Buren. And then Harry Van Buren.
Yeah, which, like, her being silent just made her more of a target for people being like, sure. Oh, this person's not, like, both projecting, but also people seeing her as like, oh, this is someone who's a little bit more vulnerable because she doesn't speak. And then therefore I am having more curiosity about this person. Yeah. And then also I found it just also really interesting how we got the, because if I remember, like, because she gets married, and then she and her husband were going to repatriate to Israel. Yep. And she's trying to get Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones to go along with them. And they're just like, no, this is our home. Yeah. And like, there's this like difference between, I feel like for a long time, like, America was always depicted as like, immigrants come here for a better life because they think this is better. And then you're seeing work for everybody. Yeah. Yeah. And then you're seeing, once again, another group of people being like, no, we have to go now here because now our life will be better if we go over here. Right. So like,
there's a difference between going to America and assimilating, becoming part of the melting pot. But really what that means is melting off, some of what makes you, and taking on the ingredients that allow you to assimilate, and then versus claiming your own identity. And this is what I liked most about her. Claiming your own identity and saying, you know what, I'm putting a stake in the ground. I'm going to establish who I am.
But this place is not me. This place is not for me.
Yeah. Like I want to be like, I understand what's going on here. I'm not ignorant to it. I don't like it. You know, like I understand life's going to be a little more difficult over there. I'd rather be me and struggle than have to pretend to be happy being somebody else.
Yeah, because I also feel like her as a foil is also because like we're getting throughout a lot of the movie, Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones to different degrees are and I think this is one of the larger conflicts of the movie, and also which I think I kind of compare this. I'm like, this it's like the Brutalist and Honora are kind of the flip side of the same theme, or like not the flip side, but like literally are the same themes of just like those two characters are just like so caught up in what life they're able to have by being close to this one rich person, and the person who sees through most of that bullshit is the niece.
Right.
And that like, and then it's a slow drop off once the niece goes away and Adrian Brody starts working again for Guy Pearce, that like you start to see be like, oh wait, no, this is actually pretty terrible. Like we are actually no better than if we had left home by just trying to appease this shitty person.
Okay. I want to close out with, because you mentioned, you know, you didn't pick up on the she is mute because of aspect, and you were just sitting there and enjoying and loving the movie. I want to talk about the part that the one of the aspects that is undeniably lovable and beautiful and amazing, and that's some of the cinematography, and specifically the cinematography at the marble quarries in Italy. Obviously there's a scene that juxtaposes that that like crashes down on that beauty, and we won't dive too deep in. We're not going to dive into that at all. I just really want to talk about the beautiful aspects of the cinematography of this movie. I can't think of just a single 2 minutes of film that's more beautiful, you know, in a film, not in a narrative film like this. You know, obviously there's IMAX stuff where it's like, hey, here's, you know, the ocean, and isn't this an amazing, beautiful thing? And it's like, holy shit, this is amazing and beautiful. Whereas this is just like, here's the narrative film, and we're going to spend 2 minutes panning and scanning these amazing vistas in this Italian village, you know.
And what's helped about too is the score as well, because the score is, to me, like the score itself is almost like its own character.
For sure.
Like,
yeah.
Like whenever you get to that theme, the like I get so activated hearing it. I just like want to like work out. But also the way I've described it to people, and I think that sequence itself is a good example of just like the way I described the score to people is it's kind of like an orchestral Brian Eno score. In that like it's, along with it being very gorgeous, filmed in 70 millimeter. When I first watched it, I watched it in 70 millimeter, and actually Brady Corbett was there too.
Oh wow!
I didn't stay for the Q&A because at 3.5 hours I was tired. But
you're ready. You were good.
We needed pizza. I was so hungry. But like I do remember that scene specifically, just like with how gorgeous it is with its 70 millimeter like cinematography, and then you have this like really atmospheric score that, like, with the exception of that one theme, doesn't have a lot of it feels like it just constantly shifts. It's almost like as much noise, electronic noise, orchestral noise, but it's also at times very soothing and very otherworldly, especially when it's like in the mountains during that scene.
For anyone who needs sort of a frame of reference, the guy who did the score here is the same person who did the score from a couple of years ago on the World War I movie, the German one.
Wait, is that dude?
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm looking this up.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It would make sense.
All's Quiet on the Western Front. I got it. Okay, so it's the same dude. It's the same dude. So
it's the same dude.
It's the same dude. So, yeah. So anyway, that if you need a frame of reference, I said we were probably going to end up talking about the Brutalist for 30 minutes before we came on, and it's been 30 minutes. So let's wrap this up.
Wait, no, I don't think it is.
Is it not?
No,
I
because
could have swore it
that
was.
dude did Conclave. Now I'm gonna look this up because I was like, I don't think that's right. Otherwise, uh,
Oh, I thought it
Guy
was the
just,
same dude.
yeah, I was like, Guy just loves to do the same.
Oh, damn it. I'm wrong. All right. I apologize. Shit.
That's okay.
Anyway, it's his brother.
It would be hilarious if it was.
Yeah. I swear to God, I thought it was like, I didn't even look it up. I was like, oh, that's who this is.
Can I ask about one thing though?
Yeah.
I have one topic I want to ask. So have you heard about the controversy regarding this movie and AI?
No.
Okay, so this actually just came up in the past couple days.
Okay.
I'm still searching myself for how I feel about it. Okay. So the editor really casually in an interview mentioned that not only were some of the structures in the movie created with AI, so some of the structures that we see in the movie were created with AI, they actually used AI to tweak Adrian Brody's Hungarian to make it sound more authentic. Because they tried ADR, apparently. They tried like other methods. And then to save time, they used AI. And
does
now
Adrian Brody know this? Does SAG know this?
I don't know, but like this literally just came out. And wow. Like it's interesting to hear because the editor was just like, Hollywood is doing this shit regardless. Yeah. So, but it's also creating a bigger discussion for people being like, well, could that have been other people's jobs that could have done this? Also, this is a movie that was made for what, $6 million? It's an insanely big movie for how small that budget is compared to everything else. So like,
okay, interesting. I don't know if that's going to affect my score. So
I didn't know if you had heard about it. Like if you had thoughts about that. It's just
my only thought on that is knee jerk. You know what? I'm not super mad if they're going to create buildings using AI, but then you said, oh, it takes away work, and now I'm mad. So yeah.
Oh, did I ruin it again?
No, that's all right.
It's just Amelia Perez all over again.
No, it's really not Amelia Perez all over again. Like, I already had problems with Amelia Perez. No, as long as George Lucas doesn't come in and be like, hey, I can make a whole new Star Wars movie just with AI instead of computer shit.
He'll come back and be like, I can make the original series even better.
Yeah, no, let's not using AI. Can we not just, George, leave it alone? Anyway, here at Really Real Talk, we do not give out stars. We get tacos. And if we feel like something deserves a little extra, instead of giving half a taco, we add guac. Why? Because nobody eats a half a fucking taco. So, Kristen, if you could start us off, please. 1 to 5 tacos, and is it getting guac?
So my final score, this was for a long time my favorite movie of the year.
Okay.
I thought it was going to last, and then 2 movies sniped it at the very, very end.
Okay.
But it's a movie that I think is really, like, although I clearly did not pick up a lot of symbolism, I still appreciated how it was taking it's doing very big choices. Like, I describe this, the way I was describing it to people is that, like, this feels like a movie from the 1970s. Like, this feels like a movie you don't make anymore.
Right.
The fact that it's both so large in scope, spans so many decades, is talking about so many big ideas, and yet is incredibly intimate at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's so focused on characters, even camera-wise, it's so focused on characters. Like, largely in medium shots and close-ups throughout a lot of it, which I saw a lot the second time. That, like, it's 5 tacos. Like, it's...
Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome.
That, like, I can't wait to, like, rewatch it again. I can't wait to, like, give it more thought to, like, really dissect its different points. Do I think it's for everyone? No,
No, it's
because
not.
definitely it feels like a 3.5 hour movie, which
It
thankfully
feels
has
like
an
it.
intermission.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
like, do I appreciate everything it's trying to do? And like, it's like artistry while telling it. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think Adrian Brody gives the best performance of the year.
Yeah, yeah. All right. For me, the honestly, and this I'm being just honest. Like, I can't give it 5 tacos because of the drugs sub story. I can't do it. It's just been done, and it the movie is 3.5 hours. It feels like 3.5 hours, and it's heavy throughout, and it just adds weight that feels really unnecessary, and I'm not sure that you can eliminate any other weight in the movie and still have a really solid excellent movie, except maybe Elizabeth being in a wheelchair. I think you could dump that, and like that's the thing is that there is symbolism. There is so much symbolism in this movie. Every single frame drips with symbolism that is right there present on the screen, and you can get rid of some of the symbolism and not lose anything from the movie. And I love that it's dripping with symbolism. I also feel like it doesn't need that. It's like enough. For me, I reach a point where it's like enough. I am being inundated with the symbolism that I was taught to find in literature, in 12th grade. I don't need to be doing it for 3.5 hours in a movie theater. I'm going 4 tacos plus guac. It's so good. It is so good. I hope anybody who loves film watches this movie, but also at the same time, yeah, it, 10% less, and I think we're, it's, I think we're still good. I don't know. All right, the next movie we're gonna do, you and me together, we're gonna do Nickel Boys. I watched this movie yesterday on MLK Day. It's it's a fictionalization of something that may have happened in an actual what's it called, the not conservancy, it's
Oh, you're
what's
talking about
the jails for kids, not
yeah,
and not
juvenile
but not a juvenile detention center. It's a reform school. It's
reform school.
it's an actual reform school that existed in Florida for 111 years into the 2010s. Like it wasn't closed until 2011, and it was doing horrible things to kids, primarily African American kids, well into 2011. And it's a fictionalization of uh something that may have happened to kids in the 1960s, so not just these terrible things are happening in this reform school, but these terrible things are happening in a reform school and they're African Americans in the deep South. So you can imagine the terrible, horrible things that these kids have to go through. It is probably one of the most difficult movies I've had to watch in a long. It's so what the main character Elwood is one of the two main characters. Elwood is falsely accused of participating in stealing a car because he hitchhikes a ride with a guy who actually did steal the car. And of course, 1966, the Deep South, they don't care if you did it or not. You're, a African American kid in a stolen car. You stole the car, and so he gets thrown into the reform school. A promising kid. He was on his way to his first day, in a possible college, and just terrible. It's like, this is a terrible thing that's happening to a really, really good kid, and it's just it's like Shawshank Redemption, but times 20. It's like, whew. Did you make it through this movie alive? Like
Oh yeah, like I was gobsmacked by this
I
movie
know.
just because I had, and we haven't even mentioned the fact that like the big thing about this movie is that it's told almost entirely in first person. So like we are watching this movie from the eyes for the most part from the eyes of Elwood, but also from his friend as well. Like it'll switch perspectives.
Turner, yeah.
Sometimes it will switch perspectives in the sense that like you'll have a scene and then the scene will replay, but from Turner's perspective.
And that, like, and it's not just like, oh, it's from the perspective. It's like literally the camera is
literally
the person.
People are talking straight to you, straight to the camera.
It's
and
a
like
really, really amazing device.
Yeah. And like we see this occasionally in movies where like they will do a first person perspective. And knowing this movie is told mostly from this perspective made me go, is this going to get old really, really fast? Because sometimes things like that are cute. But like for a whole movie get really, really boring. Like I'm one of the few people that really does not like Baby Driver because I'm so over the sound effects.
Okay.
The whole sound effects syncing up with everything. I'm just like, okay, I get it. Like you made everything go off like in sync. I don't care anymore. Like I was so over that movie for this reason. And so like I kind of went into this movie thinking like, holy shit, is this just gonna get so old so fast? And I was just it's riveting. It is so.
And I have a theory. I have a theory on why the director chose this. One of the things that I champion and appreciate in movies is when a movie understands the difficulty of the subject matter and presents an avatar for the audience, because it's very difficult sometimes for an audience to relate to what's going on if they're not given a character to connect with. And by making the camera a first person narrative, presentation, that no doubt this is your avatar, this is who you're experiencing things through, and it really becomes personal
and it's relatable. Like it's like even at times where like the story is very specific to the people that it's talking about and the circumstances with which they are experiencing, there are still so many instances where like, especially in the beginning when he's just a kid and we're experiencing these small moments. It's kind of like a Terrence Malick movie in that,
for sure. It's the first like 20 minutes are extremely Terrence Malick.
Yeah, where like we're experiencing like different things that like, for sure, I've totally gone through as well. Like these different moments that like I didn't like. They brought up very like specific memories out of me that I'm just like, oh, I can kind of place myself. And that also made it to where once I placed myself in those shoes, felt that much more like that much hit me much harder.
Yeah.
Just like having to experience then all the terrible things that happen.
Yeah. And being forced to experience those things and being forced to, you can't just be like, oh, I can't believe these things are happening to this character. It's, oh my God, I can't believe these things are happening to me. Like it's so like, how would, as much as somebody who's watching it, from a standard camera angle, would be like, oh, how would I deal with being in that room? It's like, you have to deal with being in that room. And it's so, it's just, and that the movie, I saw it on January 20th, and all the other bullshit that was going on January 20th. It was just like, and it's like, no, people don't want to learn about this. People don't want to hear about this. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. This is the most important aspect of our history that people have to hear about.
Yeah. And then I was also astonished by how like even more experimental it is compared to like beyond the first person perspective of it, that it's that it goes back and forth in time. We're experiencing scenes that sometimes feel like, is this a memory? Is this something that we are just like in the mind of this main character that we are, sometimes we're fast forwarding to the future and we're experiencing what I think might be him, but also could also just be an ancestor of him. Because it would make sense why like temporally, but also just like that the experiences that he's having is still being felt by generations beyond that, and they're
For
wanting
sure.
answers for it, that they're wanting,
It's
and it's like has times where like you're seeing, sometimes you're seeing footage of like real people that were
yeah.
not even there, and it's taking a lot of these ideas. See, this is where I'm like, Brutalist I took very literally, this one I took very not literally, in the way it's smashing both its first person story, but also it's taking different elements, different video, like home movies, different historical things, and
Yeah.
like smashing them all together.
Yeah.
And it's in such an experimental, but
Yes.
also very
The,
like emotional way.
both of them make use of archival footage, but in
Mhm.
such different ways. You know, the Brutalist is using the archival footage to literally is a newsreel in the middle of the film, like that is the use of it, whereas in Nickel Boys it's really to present that subtext and present that, by the way, this shit's really going on, by the way, this is kind of what's happening, by the way, these are the other things that are Martin Luther King, and it's all right. Nickel Boys, let's go ahead and are we ready to rate it?
Sure.
Okay, where do you land on Nickel Boys?
So this, to me, I honestly wish, like, this is why I want more experimental cinema, because
Sure,
like
sure.
I've like left the theater feeling so many feelings, not expecting to be like as touched by this story, but also just like feel like I watched something that was truly new,
Right.
that like I don't think I've ever seen a movie like this,
I
and I
know.
doubt we'll ever see another
We
movie
won't.
like this.
Well, so Ramel Ross is the director, and you're aware, like he's a documentarian, like that.
Yes.
That is his trade. And somebody came to him and said, "Hey, would you want to make this movie?" And he was like, "No, not really. I don't." And they were like, "Well, we'll let you do whatever the hell you want." It's like, "All right, fuck yeah, I'll make this movie." And he's come out and said he doesn't really have any desire to make any more, fictional narratives. Like he's a documentarian, that's he wants to kind of go back to doing that, and you're right. So because of that, it's almost like we're having a really interesting nonfiction or fiction voice just saying, I only had one thing to say and this is it. It's
And that's amazing. I
yeah,
mean, that's
yeah.
I mean, that's I kind of sometimes wish there were other directors that did that. That like
But also makes me think, what if Paul, not Paul Thomas Anderson, Wes Anderson only made one. Like it's like, because it's that experimental. What if Wes Anderson's first movie had been, instead of for Bottle Rocket and then followed up by Rushmore, what if his first movie had been like Royal Tenenbaums and he stopped? It's just like, wow, like that's a voice that we're missing, and I hope Ramel Ross like gets a bazillion dollars to make documentaries if he really doesn't want
yeah,
to make
like I am
anything.
excited to, like I had never really thought about his, I know we're supposed to give a rating. Like
Yeah.
I never really had, I was just not expecting to like really connect with this movie.
Yeah.
And this movie is uh 5 tacos plus guac. This
Yeah.
movie was like, for a very brief moment, was my number one movie. And like
This is, and I'm with you. This movie is just an absolute revelation of a
that,
film,
like
and
I hope to God it gets a director nomination. I don't think it will. I think it's
no,
just such a long shot, but if it
no.
did, it would be such an amazing,
It's
amazing
it.
nomination.
The reality is that for as experimental as it is, like it really feels like somebody's first go. Like there are aspects of it that are a little rough, that are a little like, okay, you know, like Wes Anderson. If you go back and look at Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket versus Wes Anderson's, even Life Aquatic, or he clearly had an idea of what his voice was going to be in Bottle Rocket, and I would love to see Ramel Ross's voice several years down the road, after he's had an opportunity to really establish what it is that visually he's trying to say.
Really?
Because
Because
it
I
would be
think he gives the best direction of the year. Like I
well.
think he's the.
I
I
I'm
think he's.
I agree. What I'm saying is that this is his first time. Like I feel like you could say it could get so much more interesting and so
Oh
much
yeah,
better.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it's like he's clearly just an absolute artist, and I hope we get more. And if not in fiction, then I hope we get like some really good documentary stuff. And interestingly enough, it's a 5 taco plus guac movie that I don't know if I'll ever be able to watch again. Like I just don't
Oh, it's
know.
tough,
I
but
just don't
yeah.
know if I'll ever be able to watch it again. But I hope I do. I hope I do. Kristen, we're gonna have you drop off now. Thank you so much for coming out. Everybody hang out. I'm going to talk about September 5 here in a second.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We'll
Look
catch
forward to
you.
talking about Oscars soon.
Awesome. Yeah. Just let me know when you want to have a convo, or if you see a movie that you want to talk, whatever. And I'll let you know what I see and if you want to hop on.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye. All right. It's just me. Sorry. I know. Kristen's the best. September 5. Look, if you've seen Spielberg's Munich, this is everything that led up to Munich. This is the story of September 5th, 1972, the Munich Summer Games, and the hostage taking of Israeli Olympic athletes. And it's literally just that 24-hour period, almost a little less than 24-hour period of when they were captive, and what it's literally how does ABC, what's going on behind the scenes at ABC as the world watches ABC present this as it unfolds. I called it in my tongue in cheek, I called these the feel good movies of the year, the trio. None of these movies make you feel good at any point. There is so much weight, emotional weight on all three of these movies, so much to impact from different uh generational people, people like big P people, so much generational weight that is being presented to the audience in all three of these movies, and September 5 is no different. But it also feels the lightest, not and that's not to make light of what happens, but it's just it is the most formulaic Hollywood of the three. Like there, there's the way it's presented, the way it's made. It's very like this is a Hollywood movie. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing in that it's just a Hollywood. Like sometimes you just need, your blankie when you go to a movie and feel like, okay, not everything needs to really dive deep. This is just like we're telling the story, and we're just diving into the story, and the story is the story, literally. And it's perfectly paced, impeccably paced movie, impeccably acted movie. um Everything that's happening you has the importance of what it must have been like to watch at the time, but also these the news folks understanding that they're presenting history. Like everything is presented in the context of these people understand the context of what they're presenting. It's very meta and self-referential in that way, and I loved that aspect of it. Look, like I had said up front, I do kind of feel like it's I do genuinely feel like it's gonna it's looking at a best picture nom, but it's also like, it's not Conclave. It's definitely not the Brutalist. It's definitely not Nora. It's just you know what this is just a great period piece that is terrible but fascinating. It's riveting to watch unfold. And I would be lying if I didn't say that I snuck onto the Wikipedia page just to see, shit, do these people live or not? I did. I spoiled it for myself just because I figured I should know. If this movie gets 4 tacos, it's a fantastic, delicious, delicious 4 tacos. But it's a 4 taco movie, and everybody should see 4 taco movies. This has been Real to Real Talk. I'm your host, Paul Britton. Thank you so much to Kristen Smith for coming in and giving 30 minutes to a 3-hour and 30-minute movie, The Brutalist. And I hope we didn't do a disservice to the Nickel Boys by not giving it 30 minutes as well. All 3 of these movies are must sees. I hope you go and see them. And, yeah. We'll be sure to catch you next week. I'm not sure what's coming out this weekend, but I have some catching up to do. I snuck in up front that there were some other movies that came out this past weekend. So catch you